All right. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all virtually. Please do me one favor, mute your mics when you're not speaking. Thanks. I want to flag that tonight, at 1 minute after midnight, the Secretary General will release his policy brief on COVID-19 and the urban world. The report will give an overview of the stark impact the pandemic is having on cities. It will demonstrate how the crisis has worsened existing inequalities and development deficits and has thrown the UN's sustainable urbanization policies into question. It will also give recommendations on how to tackle this inequality and ensure that vulnerable populations are protected. A new UN report released today says that even though there's been a drop in civilian casualties in Afghanistan, it remains one of the deadliest conflicts in the world for civilians. There have been fewer civilian casualties in the first half. Excuse me. Sorry. There have been fewer casualties in the first half of 2020 compared to the same period last year, mainly due to the reduction in operations by international military forces and Daesh in Khorasan. However, the new report by the UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan said that there has been no reduction in civilian casualties caused by the Taliban and Afghan National Security Forces. The Secretary General's Special Representative, Deborah Lyons, urges the parties to reflect on the harm they are causing to the Afghan people and to take decisive action to stop the carnage and get to the negotiating table. Also in Afghanistan, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that there is a deteriorating humanitarian situation amid rising cases of COVID-19 and funding deficits for the country's humanitarian response plan. There have been more than 36,000 confirmed cases in the country and 1,269 deaths due to the virus. As the testing capacity and the health system in Afghanistan is limited, these numbers very likely do not reflect the true severity of the outbreak. So far, less than 1/4 of Afghanistan's 2020 humanitarian response plan is funded, compared to 27% this time last year. Without urgent funding, life-saving activities, which include the COVID-19 response, will be delayed and lives will be lost. This afternoon, the Security Council will hold a closed session by VTC to discuss the recent political developments in Mali, as well as mediation efforts. On the UN side, members of the Council will be briefed by the head of the Peacekeeping mission in Mali, Mohamed Saleh Anadif. We have an update from the UN mission in the Central African Republic, where the joint operation named Alalondo is making progress against the 3R armed group. Yesterday, UN peacekeepers took control of the town of Bisson from the armed group. Last week, UN and Central African forces all regained control of the towns of Niem and Getse. The head of the peacekeeping mission, Mankua Ndiaye, reiterated his commitment to continue the operation until the surrender of the 3R armed group and until the population of the area can live in peace. And staying in the Central African Republic, the UN mission continues to support the country's pandemic response with logistical and operational support through what is called quick impact projects. The mission delivered medical equipment and personal protective gear, freezers, chlorine, and more. Schools received tables, benches, and teaching materials, while the Coordination of Islamic Women of Waka was given cassava mills to help them process cassava for commercial purposes. MINUSCA also supported the equipment of a training room for young people in Boeing Bimbo in the Waka prefecture, which will help facilitate social cohesion and peaceful cohabitation between communities. And from South Sudan, the UN mission continues to raise awareness about COVID-19. The mission is helping to provide reliable information to people in Basunkangbi, a remote village with no communication network in West Equatoria state. Peacekeepers spoke with local community leaders and others on the dangers of COVID-19 and how they can keep themselves and others safe. The UN mission also helped to construct a road that will allow people to reduce the amount of travel time to the nearest town to sell their produce and buy essential supplies for their families. In Brazil, where there are now nearly 2.4 million confirmed cases and more than 86,000 deaths due to COVID-19, the UN team, led by resident coordinator Nikki Fabiancic, is working with national and local authorities to address the immediate health needs and curb other impacts of the pandemic. The team is focusing specifically on addressing these impacts in the Amazon region to protect indigenous peoples and vulnerable communities. The International Organization for Migration's mobile health units are assisting refugees and migrants. IOM and local partners also delivered 700 hygiene kits, furniture and appliances to poor families, including those coming from Venezuela. For its part, the UN Children's Fund worked with 300 girls from vulnerable settings and over 30 public servants to tailor public policies and services seeking to protect and empower girls during the pandemic. UNICEF also delivered more than 7,000 hygiene kits to Afro-Brazilian communities in the north. In addition, UN agencies are supporting local authorities to relocate nearly 160 Warao indigenous people to a new permanent shelter. We have an update on the floods in Bangladesh. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that at least 3.3 million people are currently affected, with nearly 1/4 of the country being flooded, according to an assessment just completed by the government and aid partners. Some 40% of those affected are children, with nearly half of the 93 people who have died being children. The flooding has damaged housing and infrastructure, including dams, water wells, hygiene facilities, and more than 1,900 schools. It has also severely disrupted healthcare services in many areas. Livelihoods, local markets, crops, livestock, and fisheries have also been severely affected, which our humanitarian colleagues warn could also lead to increased food insecurity. Humanitarian partners are responding in coordination with the government of Bangladesh. And we have an update on the investigation into a video involving staff members of the UN Truce Supervision Organization, or UNTSO. A third male international staff member who was in the UN vehicle in Tel Aviv has also been identified as having engaged in alleged misconduct. The staff member has been placed on administrative leave without pay, pending the results and conclusion of the ongoing OIOS investigation. Ahead of World Hepatitis Day, which is marked tomorrow, the World Health Organization says that the proportion of children under 5 years of age chronically infected with hepatitis B dropped to just under 1% in 2019. This is down from around 5% in the pre-vaccine era, which is the period between the 1980s and the early 2000s. WHO notes that this marks the achievement of one of the milestone targets to eliminate viral hepatitis in the Sustainable Development Goals. On World Hepatitis Day 2020, the World Health Organization is calling for united and stepped-up action to build on this achievement. Globally, more than 250 million people are living with chronic hepatitis B, and infants are especially vulnerable. And tomorrow I will be joined by Selwyn Hart, the Secretary General's Special Advisor on Climate Action and Assistant Secretary General of the Climate Action Team. He will brief you on the launch of the Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on climate change and other efforts to address climate change as the world confronts the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is all I have for notes now, and I am free to take up any questions for you. For those of you who have questions, please mention them in the chat, and let's see what you've got. Waiting to see whether there are any hands raised. Hold on, I think there's a question. Evelyn Leopold has a question. So it'll be Evelyn first, and then Iftikhar.
Okay, thank you. What do you have anything about on the fighting in Darfur?
Yes, I believe what we can say about that. At this stage, where our humanitarian colleagues are examining reports of displacement in Darfur, we don't have any details yet on this, but we'll be in touch and try to provide some further information as we get those. And next, Iftikhar.
Thank you, Farhan. The New York Times is reporting that former Iranian President Ahmadinejad wrote a letter to Saudi Crown Prince and the Secretary General and the Houthis on offering ideas to resolve the Yemen war. Your colleague Stefan was quoted as saying that he had no knowledge about this letter. Did the Secretary General now receive his letter?
We haven't received a letter yet on this. Obviously, we appreciate the efforts of any and all of the parties in the region to try to contribute positively to a solution in Yemen. At the same time, as you know, our envoy, Martin Griffiths, is focused on his own work with the respective parties. And we encourage everyone, all governments, to be supportive of Mr. Griffiths as he goes about those tasks.
Thank you.
Okay, James Bays.
Pressing my muting. You can hear me now, Farhan. Good.
Yes.
So clashes involving Hezbollah and Israeli troops. What is the UN's response to this?
Well, on that, what I can tell you is that hold on one second, is that Major General Stefano Del Col, who has been the force commander of the UN interim force in Lebanon, is in contact with both parties to assess the situation and decrease tension. And he urges a maximum restraint at this time. And of course, we share that call with Major General Del Col.
Can I just have a related follow-up? Clearly, UNIFIL's mandate is due to be negotiated in the next few weeks, and it's up for renewal in August. What is the Secretary General's view on the mandate and how perhaps it should change?
Well, the Secretary General's views about the work of UNIFIL are shared in his periodic reports to the Security Council, so I would just refer you to those. As to whether any further changes are needed, we will follow whatever guidance we get from the members of the Security Council, and we're aware that they are discussing this matter. Okay, Ibtisam, you're next.
Thanks, Farhan. I have first a question about Yemen, if you have any updates on the humanitarian front, and then I have another question. Thanks.
We've gotten periodic updates on Yemen, but I don't have one as of today. But you're aware of the concerns that we've had, including the fact that we are worried about the potential spread of COVID-19 throughout the country, and so we have been working with the authorities to make sure we can deal with the situation, and those concerns remain.
Okay, I have a follow-up on. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Were you?
The floor is yours.
Okay. So I have a follow-up on Yemen. So you have talked about the fact that you have shortage of money and that you don't have enough donor aid. My question to you is, and it has to do also with the fact that this year, compared to last year, the Saudis and the Emiratis are not donating as much as they did last year. My question to you is, do you think that the fact that the Secretary General let the Saudi-led coalition and the Saudis off the hook in his report about the children armed conflict was leading to the fact that they don't feel the pressure to contribute more to humanitarian aid, or even to be under any pressure to,
Well, I think that's a bit speculative. From our standpoint, we don't believe that there should be and that there is any connection between the work of the Special Representative on Children in Armed Conflict and our overall humanitarian efforts. And there shouldn't be any such connection. Certainly, she writes these reports and bases her evaluations on the result of her own work, and that is separate and apart from what countries contribute to our humanitarian efforts.
I mean, but in her report, she didn't let them off the hook. I mean that the Secretary General did not add them to his list of countries that violating children in armed conflict. Do you think that this contributed to make them feel that they are not under pressure anymore to,
I wouldn't want to speculate on what this or that government feels is in their interests. We don't do that work. What I'm saying is that the work we do on children in armed conflict is done independently of whatever our other expectations from governments on, for example, humanitarian contributions are.
So what's your message to the countries that are not contributing enough to aid the Yemenis?
Well, we want all countries to contribute. Our standard message for months has been that if we do not get the money we need in Yemen, we'll have to cut back on programs. And this is at a time when the Yemeni people need it the most, and when they're facing a new threat from the pandemic that could be extremely destructive if we can't counter it. Now over to Nizar Aboud.
Thank you, Farhan. Regarding the alleged clashes in South Lebanon, in the UNIFIL area, do you have any UNIFIL reports about what happened? Because most of the reports came from Israel and they were conflicting. Some said that they have obliterated a whole Hezbollah cell, and then they said the cell pulled out from Israel. And then there were definitely videos showing that the Israelis have shelled Mount Hermon and Hibari and destroyed a house in Hibari. So what is the UNIFIL report about that?
Regarding that, the basic point is that we are in touch with both parties, and again, like I said, Major General Del Col is calling for maximum restraint. We're not going to give a point-by-point description of events on the ground, but UNIFIL is there, and it is working assiduously to make sure that that the situation will be calm and that tensions will be decreased. And with that, Abdul Hamid.
Thank you, Farhan. Follow up on the
I have a follow-up.
tension in South Lebanon. I mean, before the skirmishes of today, in the last 48 hours, Israel violated the airspace of Lebanon 29 times. Have the UN spoken about these violations? It could have calmed things down, but being the UN silent about the repeated Israeli violation of the airspace of Lebanon, that maybe encouraged this situation to go out of hand and escalate. Why the UN was silent on 29 violations in about 48 hours before the current state of affairs?
As you're aware, UNIFIL monitors all violations in its area of responsibility and reports on them to the Security Council. And it also regularly is in touch with both parties to make sure, once there are violations, that the matters are resolved. So they're very active on this particular front. It's not about a public announcement by them each time, but certainly they do keep the council informed and they keep the parties informed.
I have a second question, Farhan.
Sure.
Okay. We asked repeatedly, Stefan and yourselves, about the body of Ahmed Arikat, who was killed by Israel, and his body still kept under Israeli control for about now a month. And we asked Stefan, and he said, I will come back to you with a language about keeping the Palestinian bodies under Israeli control for a long time. And we asked again, and he said, oh, I'll come back with some language. I'll come back with some language. And so far, he didn't come back with any language. Can you explain what is the position of the Secretary General of those young Palestinians who are killed and their bodies are kept by Israel for a long time?
Well, we're monitoring this situation, but I would refer you. Our colleagues from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights do have a comment, and they have also urged this issue to be resolved. They do not believe that that bodies should be held. So for further information on that, I'd just refer you to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, who have the lead on this particular issue. And with this, Nabil?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Farhan. Back to UNIFIL. So you confirm that UNIFIL is deployed on the ground where the clashes are taking place in Shebaa Farms? Can you confirm that?
No, I'm not saying that UNIFIL is deployed there. I'm saying that UNIFIL has been in touch with the parties, and in particular, the force commander, Major General Stefano Del Col, has been in contact. So UNIFIL, including the force commander, are working to reduce tensions. That's as much as I'm going to say on that at this time.
Okay, and can you remind us, please, because the recommendations of the Secretary General are, of course, clear in his latest report, but we never had them on camera. So about the freedom of movement, can you please remind us what are the main elements that he recommended?
Well, I'd refer you to the report for the whole thing, but basically, the larger point that he's making is that the UN interim force in Lebanon needs to be able to have the freedom of movement to go about its scheduled tasks in its area of operations. And this is something we are pressing with all parties.
And
Okay.
on Yemen, I have a question on Yemen.
Sure.
It seems that Mr. Griffith, or this is what I heard from some diplomats, that Mr. Griffith did not receive a positive response from the Yemeni government on his latest efforts to resume talks, although some sources say that the coalition is on board, the Houthis are on board, but not the Yemeni government. Do you have a message on this point in particular?
We don't give blow-by-blow descriptions of our diplomatic efforts. As you know, Mr. Griffiths has been in touch with the government of Yemen and with Ansar Allah. We've mentioned from time to time his discussions. And as you know, he has also spoken to the Security Council about his efforts. He remains hopeful that he can make progress on this issue, and we'll leave the matter in his hands. And we'll leave it at that for now. Yes, Benny Avni.
Yes. First of all, I don't understand why chat is unavailable for telepresence users. That appears on my, that's a message that appears, so I don't understand that.
I saw your message in chat, so whatever it's telling you.
Okay, gotcha.
I actually have a large number of you on chat today, so I'm thrilled with the amount of communications I'm getting.
Excellent. So UNIFIL has 10,000 troops on the ground, or peacekeepers on the ground. And you're telling me that UNIFIL can't confirm or deny that something happened, because the Israeli side describes an event. Hezbollah just now issued a statement that nothing happened. So you can tell me, can you at least say if something happened?
Well, I've told you what I've said so far, and I will stick to that.
No, you haven't said whether something happened or not.
I said that we're aware of developments, and as a result of that, Major General Del Col has been in touch with the parties. He's urging maximum restraint, and we're doing what we can to reduce any tensions.
Farhan, when you say aware of developments, does that mean something happened? There were skirmishes, there were exchange of fire, as the Israelis say, or nothing happened, as Hezbollah just said now?
Whenever there are events, there's a certain amount of confusion on the ground about what's happened. I'm not going to give you the details from here while it's worked out, but certainly he's in touch with both parties and is working out what's happened and how it can be resolved so that everything can be restored to calm.
Isn't UNIFIL's role to at least observe and tell us what happened?
I'm sure that they will report back on what's happened over the course of the day in due course. Stefano Baccara.
Thank you very much, Farhan. I asked last week a question about the death of the UN volunteer Mario Pacciolla in Colombia. And at that time, Stefan said that, he did a general answer, but then he said to contact the mission directly in Colombia. I did, and they were very also, they didn't have any news. But in the meantime, a lot of things happened because one journalist colleague of Pachola, Claudia Duque, that she's a Colombian journalist. She just published that she said that Mario told her that the UN mission, somebody in the UN mission was accusing him of being a spy. And he was laughing about it, but at the same time, he was in contact with his mother saying that he was in trouble. Now, because the authority there on the beginning said there was a suicide what happened in the 15th of July. Instead, even the mayor of Nepal, that he's his hometown, now wants and asking for investigation. My question at this point is what the UN, I don't want to talk anymore about the UN mission in Colombia, but what the UN mission, what are the UN headquarters and what the Secretary General knows about it and what he wants now at this point to know about what happened in Colombia with Mario Pachola's death.
Okay, what I can tell you on this is that we were informed by the mission about the death on the 15th of July of the UN volunteer, Mr. Pachola. And the mission sent its heartfelt condolences and solidarity to his family, his friends, and his colleagues. The UN mission in Colombia is conducting an internal investigation and is closely following the investigations of the Colombian authorities to determine the cause of his death. So that is what we have from them on this.
Just a quick follow-up. Because there was going on the autopsy, and I think it already happened, and the result of this autopsy should be out, not public, but at least maybe the UN was informed of what are those results. Can you share any news about the autopsy that was done on Mario Pachola's body?
I believe with that, as is the case in many countries, the work being done there is by the Colombian authorities. So you would need to be in touch with them about the initial look into his.
You confirm then the UN at this moment that we're talking doesn't know any result of those?
No. The mission in Colombia is in touch, including with the authorities. But if you want first-hand information, you would need to get that from the authorities in Colombia.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Nizar.
Thank you, Farhan. It's disappointing, that the UNIFIL did not come up with anything about this. The news from Lebanon are contradictory totally, and the Israeli news are contradictory. I'm also disappointed that I was not given a follow-up when I first asked my question.
You're given a follow-up right now.
No, but not unlike any other one, I was denied that at the time. How, if the Israelis have been bombarding Sheba Farms area and Hibariye, and this was visible on our television live, how come the UNIFIL did not report about that immediately? Why the United Nations is silent about it?
We're not silent. I've told you exactly what Mr. Delcol said, what General Delcol said, and what he's doing. It's not a question of silence. There are differing accounts, and I'm not going to say from this desk, not podium, I guess, what happened just yet. The details are being clarified as we speak. And at this stage, like I said, our call is for maximum restraint from the parties, and we're doing what we can to make sure the tensions will be reduced. Okay. Question now from Toby Burns.
Hi there, Farhan. I've had some computer trouble this morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Thanks. What is the UN's position on China's construction of man-made islands in the South China Sea?
I don't believe we have a comment on this. We know that different countries are trying to resolve this, and we hope that they will work this out.
But the tensions have increased pretty steadily over the last few weeks on this issue. Has the UN's position developed or changed, or?
At this stage, we're monitoring. There's nothing to say about this one way or another. But we are aware that different countries are trying to work things out bilaterally. Dulcie, do you have a question? Dulcie? Okay, Abdul Hamid?
Thank you, Farhan. Again, I want to inquire about the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Is there any development? Is the UN involved? Has been the Security Council briefed about the latest clashes in Nagorno-Karabakh area?
Well, you've heard what we had to say last week, and that is basically where we stand on this. I don't have anything new to say since what Stefan told you last week about this.
Was there any initiative by the Secretary General to contact the parties or to call for restraint or any other attempt?
Well, we have called for restraint, and you've seen what we said when Stefan was talking about this at the briefings last week, and that is where we stand.
Thank you.
And with that, I think unless there's any further questions, I wish you all a good afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.